In today's video, we're diving into a case that's heartbreaking, infuriating, and unforgettable. It's about a young woman named Christy Wilson, bright, sharp, full of life, and the predator who thought he could make her disappear. But he didn't count on one thing: her mother's relentless fight for justice. Before we begin, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe for more true crime deep dives, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a story. And drop a comment, let us know where you're watching from. These stories reach further than you'd think. Alright, let's get into it. The last known footage of Christy Wilson was captured on a casino surveillance camera. She was 27, confident, a regular at Thunder Valley Casino near Sacramento, California. Christy wasn't your typical gambler. She could count cards. Blackjack wasn't just a game for her. It was part passion, part side hustle, and she was good. Some nights she walked out with over $5,000 in winnings, but something was off. The night of October 4, 2005, Christy went to the casino alone. She was dressed casually, upbeat, and excited. She had a job interview lined up in San Francisco in just 2 days. Her life was looking up after being laid off during a tech company downsizing. She even joked about dressing her cat in a Halloween costume that year and sent her mom a picture. This wasn't a woman looking to run away. She was planning a fresh start. She called her ex around 10:30 p.m. to say she was on her way home. But she never came back. Her ex-boyfriend tried to call her 72 times the next day. The last message he left was raw and panicked. "It's been 24 hours since I talked to you last, and I'm worried sick about you." And he wasn't the only one. Christy's mom, Debbie Boyd, got the call no parent ever wants. It was 10 p.m. on October 6. Christy had been missing for 2 days. Debbie's heart sank. Thunder Valley Casino, her daughter's second home, was the last place anyone saw her. Debbie and her husband rushed into action, filing a missing persons report. But since Christy was an adult, police told them they needed proof she hadn't just left voluntarily. That wasn't easy, especially considering Christy had been struggling with some depression. But Debbie knew her daughter. Christy had just received motivational tapes and CDs in the mail, tools to help her tackle her anxiety and bounce back. She wasn't someone who gave up. And then there was the casino. Christy's car was found in the Thunder Valley parking lot. Her cat, medication, bags all untouched at home. She hadn't planned to disappear. Something had happened to her. Police got access to the casino's massive network of security footage, over 700 cameras. At first, everything looked normal. Christy arrived just before 7 p.m., took out cash from the ATM, and sat down at a blackjack table. She was winning. Smiling. Focused. Then a man appeared. A short, stocky man with black hair lingered near the slot machines. Eventually, he joined a poker table. Christy moved around the casino too, eventually sitting at the same table as this man. He looked to be twice her age, overly friendly, high fives, pats on the back. But people who knew Christy said she started acting strange once she sat next to him. She looked dazed, confused, like something was off. Her own father, Patrick Boyd, a police sergeant, watched the footage later and said she looked like someone else entirely, and he was right to be worried. Around 11 p.m., the man became more physical, touching Christy's legs, leaning in too close, wrapping his arm around her. Christy pushed him away and left the table. Surveillance caught her calling her ex. That's when she told him she was heading home, but instead of leaving, she went back to the blackjack table. And this time, something was seriously wrong. She seemed drunk, even though the man had only offered her one drink. Her behavior got more erratic. By 1 a.m., she got into a heated argument with a dealer. Security tried to intervene, and that's when the man still with her offered to escort her out of the casino. What happens next is captured on surveillance. Until it's not, the cameras show him pulling her close, grabbing her. She keeps trying to pull away. Then the two disappear into a blind spot of the casino's camera system, a place investigators would later call the black hole. Christy entered that shadowy part of the parking lot and was never seen again. The police ramped up their search immediately. Debbie and Christy's sister joined the search around the vast casino property, terrified by what they might find. Days went by. No Christy. Just fields. Silence. Questions. Debbie later said, "You want to hear details, but you don't." I just kept thinking, how are they going to find her in all this? But then a break. Casino security identified the man seen following Christy on surveillance. Mario Flavio Garcia, 53 years old. To the outside world, Garcia didn't look like a threat. He had a nice home, a wife, kids. He coached soccer. To many, he was the kind of man who wouldn't hurt a fly, but Debbie wasn't buying it. She'd seen the tape. She knew what she felt. If he's any kind of man, he'll tell us where she is. I want my daughter back, and I want her back now. What no one realized at the time was that Mario Garcia had a dark, violent history, one that stretched back decades, and Christy Wilson wasn't his first victim. Part 2, The Predator Behind the Smile. When police identified Mario Garcia as the man who left the casino with Christy Wilson, they acted fast. They showed up at his house in the quiet neighborhood of North Highlands, California. On the surface, he looked like any average suburban dad. He had a family, a steady job, coached his kids' soccer team, but what detectives found behind closed doors would expose a much darker truth. They asked Garcia straight up, "Were you at Thunder Valley Casino on October 4th? He said yes. No hesitation. Claimed he had gone alone to blow off some steam. Said he met a woman, he didn't know her name, and they talked. She was flirty, he said, but when he offered her a ride, she said no and walked away." But detectives already had a huge problem with his story, because surveillance showed something very different. Christy didn't walk away from him. She didn't go off alone. The last image of her was walking with Garcia through the parking lot, her pulling away, him holding tighter, and then, nothing, no exit on camera. No return. Her car, still in the lot. Her phone? Turned off that night. She was gone. When police told Garcia that they had casino footage, 700 cameras worth, his mood shifted. He got defensive. Suddenly couldn't remember details. Claimed Christy was drunk, and they went separate ways. But it didn't add up. As the investigation deepened, Garcia's image began to crack. He wasn't just an innocent guy who got caught up in a tragic misunderstanding. He had a violent criminal record. In 1978, he was convicted of attempted rape in San Diego. He broke into a woman's home, climbed on top of her, and tried to assault her. The only thing that stopped him? Her screams. Garcia served just 45 days in jail for that. Fast forward to 2000, another woman came forward. She claimed Garcia had drugged and raped her. Her story? Chillingly similar to what people believed happened to Christy. Garcia was charged, but the case fell apart due to a technicality. Now, investigators were wondering how many more women were out there. Back at the Garcia home, police searched everything: the car, the house, the yard. And that's when they found blood in the trunk of his black Nissan Altima. Not just a drop or two. Smears. Stains. Enough to run tests. DNA confirmed it belonged to Christy Wilson. Now they had evidence of foul play, but still no body. And without a body, prosecutors had a tough road ahead. No cause of death. No crime scene. Just circumstantial evidence and a terrifying hunch. Still, Christy's mother Debbie never gave up. While police built their case, Debbie Boyd did everything she could to keep her daughter's name alive. She gave interviews, held rallies, kept Christy in the news. Her message was simple: he knows where she is, and I won't stop until she's brought home. Meanwhile, Garcia's behavior got even more suspicious. He started showing up at press conferences, blending in with the public. Just watching. Listening. Like he wanted to know how close the police were to catching him. And then he did something no one expected. Garcia, feeling the heat, stabbed himself in the stomach and told paramedics it was a suicide attempt. But prosecutors saw it for what it was: a guilty man cracking under pressure. Still, he refused to say a word about what happened to Christy. Eventually, the district attorney made the call. They were going to charge Mario Garcia with first-degree murder. It was a bold move. There was no body, no eyewitnesses, just surveillance footage, DNA, and a known predator who'd lied repeatedly. The trial began in 2006, and prosecutors laid it all out for the jury. They showed the last moments Christy was seen alive, Garcia pulling her into that blind spot in the parking lot. They presented the DNA evidence, the blood in his trunk, the inconsistencies in his story, his violent history, his attempt to harm himself. They painted a picture of a man who'd done this before and thought he'd get away with it again. The defense, meanwhile, argued that the prosecution had no real proof Christy was dead. That maybe she left voluntarily. That she was unstable. That Mario Garcia was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. But the jury wasn't buying it. After weeks of testimony, the verdict came in: guilty of first-degree murder. The courtroom erupted in emotion. Christy's family finally had an answer. Not closure, because Christy still hadn't been found, but justice. At least part of it. Mario Garcia was sentenced to 59 years to life in prison, but for Debbie Boyd, the fight wasn't over. For years after the trial, she kept searching, kept asking questions, kept hoping that one day, someone would come forward, that Garcia would break, that a hiker or construction crew would stumble on something. Anything. And then, 16 years later, the break came. Part 3, found at last, and a mother's relentless fight for justice. For 16 years, Christy Wilson's family lived with a haunting, open wound. They knew who killed her. They'd watched him get convicted. But there was still no peace. No grave. No answers to the question that tore them apart every single day. Christy's mother, Debbie Boyd, never stopped searching. Never stopped hoping. She fought like only a mother could, writing lawmakers, pushing for victim support legislation, talking to media, working with missing persons groups. She told every reporter who asked, "He knows where she is. And someday, I'll bring my daughter home." It was that kind of fire that kept this case alive, and in August 2020, after 16 long years, there was finally a breakthrough. That summer, law enforcement officials made a quiet announcement: Christy Wilson's remains had been found. Where, just 40 miles from Thunder Valley Casino, on a remote plot of land off Pleasant Grove Road in rural Placer County. The property had recently changed hands, and the new owners had stumbled on human remains buried in a shallow grave. They called police immediately. Forensic analysis confirmed what Debbie had feared and waited to hear for over a decade. It was Christy. The discovery was heartbreaking. But it was also the beginning of something that Christy's family desperately needed, a place to grieve. They could finally lay her to rest. So how did this happen? Authorities didn't say much about what led them to the area. They didn't confirm if someone tipped them off or if Garcia had ever mentioned the site. What we do know is this: the land where Christy was found was previously owned by Garcia at the time of her disappearance. In fact, he had sold the property shortly after Christy went missing. That single detail, selling the land just after the crime, was now glaring. It was the final confirmation. Not that anyone needed more proof. But for Christy's loved ones, it was validation. It was physical evidence that erased any lingering doubt, any slim chance that something else had happened. He did it. He killed her. He buried her. And then he tried to bury the truth. Debbie, speaking to the press after Christy's remains were identified, said, "I always believed we would find her. But you never prepare yourself for the moment it actually happens." She visited the site, now a deeply personal sacred place. And later, Christy was laid to rest, this time, properly, peacefully, surrounded by family and friends who had waited too long for that moment. Christy's story could have ended there. But her mother wasn't done fighting. Debbie Boyd turned grief into action. She became a fierce advocate for victims and families of missing persons. She worked with lawmakers to pass Christy's law legislation focused on ensuring the families of murder victims have more access to information about their loved ones' cases, even when bodies haven't been found. She also became a national speaker on the topic of no-body homicides, working closely with prosecutors and organizations like the FBI to push the message that a body isn't always required to get justice, because Christy's case proved it. Thanks to surveillance. Thanks to DNA. Thanks to pattern recognition. Thanks to Debbie never letting the world forget her daughter's name. And what about Mario Garcia? He's still serving his 59-year sentence in California. He has never confessed, never shown remorse, and never provided any explanation for why he did what he did. But the evidence told the story for him. A man with a history of assault, a tendency to prey on women, and the arrogance to think he could silence someone forever. Christy Wilson was his final known victim, but probably not his only one, and he underestimated the people who loved her. Christy's story is more than a murder case, it's a story about family. About a mother who refused to give up. About the power of modern forensic science. About how predators can hide in plain sight behind picket fences and soccer games and seemingly normal lives, and it's a story about perseverance. Christy was just 27. A bright, ambitious woman with her whole life ahead of her. And though her life was stolen in the most senseless, violent way imaginable, her legacy lives on, because of Debbie, because of the prosecutors who believed the evidence was enough. Because of the jurors who saw through the lies, and because we're still talking about her today. If Christy's story moved you, share this video. Leave a comment. Keep her name alive. And remember, justice doesn't always come quickly, but it can come, even when the odds feel impossible. Thanks for watching.